Yo, it's the Elohim, the Mellow Mystic, Lord Emmanuel, Chief of simonicanation, Spiker Star Seed, the wheat in the virgin's hand. And if you don't know, now you know. Check this out though. I'm about to come with the final lesson of Module 2, Lesson 2.3. And just jump straight into it. Because, but I will say this, you know, you don't have to wait for the U.S. version of a new system. I mean, you already know the U.S. is done. The old system is done. But you don't have to wait for their version of a new system. You can create your own. We can create our own. But let me go ahead and get into this lesson 2.2 of the Right to Travel course from the Simonican Mystery School of Spica, where we bring as above, so below. So, lesson 2.3 is contracts with the state and how the DMV enslaves. This is part of the legal framework module. So the objective in this final lesson of module 2 breaks down how the Department of Motor Vehicles operates as a contract administrator and not a service provider. You'll learn how your signature, registration, and silence bind you to commercial statutes and transform your right to travel into a state-controlled privilege. It says your signature, registration, and silence bind you. Do you know what binding means? It don't mean sovereignty. That's for sure. And you giving your consent and signing your signature, registering, and your silence binds you to commercial statutes and transforms your right to travel into state-controlled privileges. So what is a contract? A contract is an agreement between two or more parties with the intent to create legal obligations. It requires an offer, acceptance, consideration, or exchange of value, intent, and consent. Here's the problem. Most contracts with the state are created by fraud, coercion, or lack of full disclosure, which makes them voidable under both commercial law and common law. Again, most contracts with the state are created by fraud, coercion, or lack of full disclosure. That makes them voidable, null and void under commercial law and common law. So it's both unlawful and illegal for them to be doing this. But if you give your consent, then to be bound, then you are bound. The DMV, as a contractual track, when you sign a driver's license application, apply for a vehicle registration, accept state license plates, pay insurance mandated by statute, you are entering into a series of contracts that bind you to Title 49 USC, Transportation, Title 18 USC, Criminal Penalties for Violations, and State Motor Vehicle Codes, all of which we covered in Lesson 2.2. These acts convert your natural right to travel into a licensed activity governed by statutory law. Now, let's go over the key presumptions that the state makes. And we'll go by the action you took and the presumed consent given to the state. When you signed the driver's license, they presumed you gave consent to drive in commerce under Title 49. When you registered your vehicle, they presume you gave ownership to the state and you're just a user. When you carried insurance, they presume you accepted commercial liability and regulation. When you stayed silent at a traffic stop, you consented to jurisdiction by non-objection. You must rebut each presumption to exit the matrix, the fake matrix, the corporate show. Now, the power of your signature. Your signature creates the obligation. Your signature creates the obligation. Every state-issued ID, license, and registration you've signed is a commercial instrument. Your signature is treated as authorization to bind the straw man, not the living man or woman. Your signature is treated as authorization to bind the straw man, not the living man or woman. The DMV is not acting in good faith or full disclosure. It uses presumptive law to extract jurisdiction and revenue. Now, how do you exit these contracts? Revoke your driver's license and all applications. Rescind all vehicle registrations affirming private ownership. Issue a notice of revocation of power of attorney over the all caps name, because they assume power of attorney if you don't, and this is how they go into your trust. File a private certificate of ownership with your own nation. For example, simonicanation. Record your affidavit of travel and non-commercial declaration. And all this will be covered in depth in Module 3. So, again, the U.S. is done. You don't have to wait for their version of a new system. Because all it's going to be is an upgraded version of a debt-based slave system. You can create your own. We can create our own. You know what I mean? Now, when you're dealing with real spiritual sovereignty, a real sovereign spirit, that means they're able to travel freely through the spiritual realm, in the frequency realm, in the vibration realm, the thought realms, and the feeling realm, the emotion realm. They are not bound by a thought and a feeling. They're not just in this space, bound to this space, in a space of infinite spaces. They can travel throughout and navigate frequencies and vibrations freely. They're not just stuck right here in a loop in a certain space. They're not bound by a thought and a feeling of what somebody did to them 15 years ago. They're not bound by any religious system. They're not bound by any political system. They're not bound by any educational system. They're not bound by any entertainment system. They're not bound by any economic financial system. Because they can create their own. They're free to travel. They might be down in these frequencies for a minute, but they got enough power and enough will to be like, I don't like how it feels to be in this space. I'm about to go somewhere where I like to be. I like to be here. Now I'm about to go over here and see what's up over here. What it looks like down here is asserting your right to travel. But this the Elohim, the Mellow Mystic, Lord Emmanuel, Chief of Simonicanation, Spiker Star Seed, the wheat in the Virgin's hand, and this is the Simonican Mystery School of Spiker, where we bring as above, so below.